Welcome everyone to Zoom into Books this afternoon. We have a special guest with us today. We have award-winning author Elizabeth Moseley with us talking about her children's book, The Garden in the Glen. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Kathy. It's such a treat to be here. Thank you so much. Want to tell you a little bit about my book and where it came from?
Yes.
The Garden in the Glen was a fable that I made up and I told my children. They were the inspiration for the book. They loved to read when they were little. They were extraordinary readers, and like many parents, we had a lovely ritual in the evening where we would sit after toothbrushing and showers and read stories, and they loved it so much. And sometimes I took the opportunity to make up some stories. That way I had a chance to have kind of a teaching moment at night with little children and share a value or a lesson, something that I thought was important. And oftentimes we tried to do it with humor, and they would giggle and laugh, and it was a wonderful way to send them off to bed. And then life happened, and their father and I got a divorce, which was difficult. It was frowned upon in the community. This was a long time ago, but I understood that. Unfortunately, the children didn't, and how could they? They just felt it, and they felt that there was a shift and that things had changed, and they didn't feel like they fit in, and that was hard to watch. So what I did was go back to the routine, the wonderful ritual at night, and I continued with the stories, but I started to make up more. And one of the stories that I made up was the tale, the legend of the blue butterfly. And it was told in a way I hoped that would comfort the girls, and that they would understand that life is a bit of a bumpy road. And sometimes it's something like a separation, other times it can be an illness or something financial that makes things go in a different direction. But it was important for me to let them know that they were going to be okay, that they were strong and they were smart and they were brave. And so I made a story up for them with strong and smart and brave characters, and they loved it, and it did bring them comfort and joy. It helped, and as a mother, that was important to me. So that was the origin of the story. That was the inspiration for the story. I use the fable genre because I think it's actually a very powerful way to tell a story, especially with children. I think it's very memorable. Fables are oftentimes, the characters are forces of nature, or it's magic or mysticism, but mostly it's animals. And that was a great way to handle it, because it seems to neutralize the playing field. We don't have a lot of personalities, human personalities, but we have these human traits that are attached to these animals, and then we can pay more attention and we can get the point. So that's what I did, and they loved it and they remembered it. And years later, they came to me and said, after they had been away to school and college and studying story, they said, "Mama, you should do something with that blue butterfly legend. It has a lot of the good parts of what makes a good story." And I took it seriously, and that became the book many years later. And I'm very glad I did.
That the inspiration for your book, children, it's usually either bedtime tales or a traumatic family event like divorce or death, that we do get some of our very best children's books out of. And I think it's so nice that people do write about that. I know that you did self-publish your book. You want to tell us that story, why you decided to self-publish?
I always think there's a choice, no matter what, Kathy. And there is basically two roads to take when you publish a book. One is the wonderful traditional way, which requires an agent. And the other is to self-publish. I would have loved to have gone through an agent. They do a lot of work. They're good people. There's a lot of books out there that people want to get on the shelves, but it's not the type of thing where an agent comes and knocks at your door. You need to go out and find them, and you need to do query letters. And sometimes you need to be exclusive until an agent figures out whether or not they're going to work for you. And it's just time, but you wait. And then there's no guarantee that you're still going to get your book out there. And so my other alternative was to self-publish. It was a bit of a bumpy road. I didn't know too much about it, but I kept going. And I was fortunate in that along the way, I met people like Beth Werner and her terrific company, Author Connections. Beth has a very rich background. She took my story, which was in many different iterations, and helped me shape it up and advised me well and pointed me in the right direction to a great firm, 1106 Design, where I also worked with a terrific woman, Rhonda Rollins. And we just kept pushing it through and pushing it through. And I was maybe driving Beth Werner a little bit crazy because she thought it was ready to go and I didn't. And I'm glad I stayed with the course, and the book did get out there exactly when it was supposed to, and I learned a great deal and met some terrific people.
That's great. Beth is terrific. I've worked with Beth over the years, and she is very talented and such a good advisor too. I noticed that your book is long for a children's book. So what's your target market? Is this middle grade?
Actually, it's got a couple of age groups. 5 to 9 is where I think we are now with it being so well illustrated. There's over 55 illustrations in the book that's about less than 100 pages. So 5 to 9 seems to be a good market. I personally think it is also a great book when you have a child that isn't quite reading, that you can pop on your lap. And with the pictures on every other page, they're perfectly content. And it's a story that they can follow. I've heard very nice things from older people in my age group and beyond, in that they have called this book timeless and ageless. One of my reviewers from Literary Titan, lovely gentleman, said that he refers to the book every once in a while when he needs some inspiration, because the themes there are very relatable. So that's where I went with that.
You do have several excellent reviews, and you've touched on the social messages in the book. Would you like to expand on that?
Thank you. I think there are a lot of messages or themes going on in the book. We've got acceptance, we've got kindness, we have inclusion, we have loyalty, we have nonconformity. I think that they all work together in a very positive way against some of the forces that are in the villains in the story, which are working against us in that they're being exclusive and bullying. And the overriding theme in the story, I feel is inclusion. I think there's so much good that comes with that word. You can make so many positive changes just by being inclusive. And it's a far-reaching concept. It's not just, children being left out or not getting a birthday invitation. It goes farther than that. I think we can all relate some way to having that feeling of wanting to be part of something. Inclusion, though, in my story, has to be without conformity. There has to be the understanding that you are included exactly the way you are. You don't have to change a thing. You're perfect just the way you are. That's important. And that's where I feel very strongly, because that's giving yourself so much power. And that's the theme that I am most proud of, and I think it is the one that is overriding in the book.
Well, that touches a lot of people. Would you like to give us a synopsis of your book so people will know a little more about the story?
I would love to. The Garden in the Glen is about a tiny blue butterfly that's chased out of an all-yellow garden because she doesn't fit in. She stands out. So she makes her way over to a nearby forest glen where she finds an unusual, colorful group of woodland creatures that are all shapes and sizes who've also been expelled from the garden for the exact same reason. They didn't blend in either. The Glen offers the blue butterfly safety and kindness and friendship and acceptance. But she knows that her real destiny is back in the garden. We have a beloved queen, a magic potion, and the fate of the natural world hanging in the balance. And it's the blue butterfly and what makes her different that saves the day. The book is about the magic that finds all of us when we're brave enough to be our unique selves, exactly perfect the way we are.
That's a great message. We need more happy books.
Thank you.
I publish children's books, and we're always looking for that happy ending and that educational thread through it. That way, teachers love books like yours, and I know they'll love yours too, to take into the classroom.
I would like that's great. I agree. I think it's a good book for young children.
Absolutely. Do you do school visits and speak at conferences?
You know, I would like to do more of it. COVID kind of got in the way, Kathy, but I did get to make my mark on some darling young children with some school visits. I have not done any conferences. That's something that I think would be fun to do, but I really enjoyed so much interacting with the children. With one group of children that I had the good fortune to read to and spend some time with, the day before they had just hatched some caterpillars. So we had all these butterflies, and then I came in with my book and read to them, and they were 5, 6 years old, or the other group was more 8 and 9. But the younger children paid very good attention. I think it was the illustrations that helped with that.
That's terrific. And I'm sure that you would be willing to do virtual visits too, right?
I would like to do that very much, actually. Zoom is an incredible vehicle for us all.
It has opened up markets that we might not have otherwise touched, particularly the homeschool market. I know Zoom into Books is used by schools, libraries, book clubs, and definitely the homeschool market. And, you know, they love meeting authors and getting to know the authors. And for those of us joining us on Facebook, if you have questions for Elizabeth, please type them in the comments. And I've posted your website link, but would you like to tell people how to get in touch with you?
I would. I think we have a beautiful website, and it's fun because it's interactive. And that address is www.gardenandglen.com. And that's probably the best way to reach us.
What kind of activities? You said your website's interactive. What can people expect?
Well, my beautiful illustrations are up there. There's several of them. And if you click on them, they flip around and they give you a line from the book. So you get a feeling for the personality of some of the characters. And there's a nice synopsis of the book there. and some testimonials as well, and a direct line to both Barnes & Noble and Amazon.
That's great. I've also posted a link to Amazon for those of you who are looking. We've talked about the content, the characters briefly. There are a lot of children's books out there. How is your book different? What are we looking for in your book that we may not get in other books?
Oh, she asked that of the first-time author. There's so many phenomenal children's books out there. Kathy, you know that better than I do. And there's so much choice now, which I think is wonderful. I think my book is different because of my perspective, obviously. It's something that I feel very comfortable in. I've truly lived it. I actually wrote the book from a desk with a great big window in a garden near my house, which is on a lake surrounded by trees, and where I watched all the animals scamper all around, and the deer eat all of our flowers, and the butterflies all over our butterfly plants. So it's good when you really know your material. So from there, I feel comfortable about the fact that the book speaks to so many different types of, the characters take on so much of the language that I think children would like to see and have those ideas explained to them.
That's great. With your butterfly as the main character, I know that a lot of first graders, one of their big projects is finding a chrysalis. And there's nothing more fun than listening to first graders try to say chrysalis.
Right, imagine.
And your book is a perfect tie-in for that too. This book speaks to a lot of activities for a classroom or a homeschool group, or for family reading. Is this a chapter book? How many chapters is it? Why don't you show us the book? Hold the book.
Love to show you the book. This is the book. We just got two of the awards are up here. We have the Mom's Choice and the National Independent Excellence Awards. This is my beautiful cover done by Maggie Green. Such a beautiful job. When you ask about the activities for the book, Kathy, did I misunderstand you?
No, the length of the book.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I know that I think from the synopsis and getting to know a little bit about the characters that teachers can see right off the great potential to use your book for some of the lessons that they teach in their classes. So I was asking if it's a chapter book, is it something that you would read a chapter a night to a child, or for a middle grade child, they could take it to their favorite reading place and read it?
Well, it's got 15 chapters, and they all do deal with a particular situation. So I think it would be a great learning tool to take it in order and see how the villain and the protagonist work things through. And all of the themes are here at work. It is beautifully illustrated. So there's pretty much an illustration on every other page. But the chapters are about 3 or 4 pages. The longest one is 6 or 7. But then there's pictures like this that are, for example, that are right across both pages. And then all the chapters begin with one beautiful large picture that opens up the book. So even though it might seem like a long book with so much to look at and enjoy and 5 or 6 pages of information, I think 1 or 2 chapters a day, depending on the age of the child, would work perfectly.
That's a beautiful chapter book. It is beautiful. And I know that kids, we have found when you write a middle grade book, all people love picture books. I mean, it doesn't matter how old you get. Everyone loves a picture book. But when you get 4th grade and up, 6th grade and up, they love picture books, but they don't want to carry around those big baby books. So a book like yours is perfect for those kids, and those illustrations are beautiful. Do you want to tell us about your illustrator?
I would love to. It was such a joy to find Maggie Green, but it didn't happen right away. I had known from the very beginning that this book should be in watercolors. The girls and I, the books that we read were Jane Dyer, Jerry Pinkney. We really were spoiled by incredible, detailed watercolor illustrations. But I've always liked that for children because I think it's so friendly. But finding somebody is another story. So it was a little bit of a long road. I live up in an artistic community where there's a lot of talented people, many beautiful galleries. And I did see some beautiful animal portraits, and I would track down that artist and call them up and see what they could do for me. And oftentimes they were great at portraiture, but they weren't able to do anything in motion. So then I went from there to a wonderful friend. It allowed me to know some people at the Philadelphia Academy of Fine Arts. And that's a beautiful environment, some very talented young people. And I was receiving some beautiful illustrations through the emails. I did the same thing with Fiverr, dealing with people in Israel and South America. But I was missing something, Kathy, as fabulous as they all were. And then a friend of a friend introduced me to Maggie Green, who in the 2 years that we worked together, we met one time. She was so capable, so efficient. She had a background in art design. She taught art. She had worked in graphic design as well. So she knew exactly how to do a book. On top of that, she was a watercolor miniaturist. So she was able to take a 2-inch paper or canvas and paper, watercolors, and she was able to put a whale and give it so much personality, so much detail, vivid colors, that I thought, that's it, it's perfect. And we collaborated. It truly was a collaboration. She started with the thumbnail sketches, and then she gave me a taste of her watercolors. We talked for hours and hours, and we worked together. She elevated the book. She took it to another level. And with 55 pictures, one is better than the other. And she was able to infuse personality into the book, which was so important because a lot of my characters are funny. They have a sense of humor. And Maggie did that, as well as this beautiful cover, which has been talked about and applauded. And I wish I could take the credit. She knew exactly what to do, and she did it perfectly.
It's beautiful, and it puts you in the mind of Beatrix Potter, of Peter Rabbit. It's that kind of gentle, beautiful art, I think. It's absolutely beautiful. You had mentioned a couple authors. I've had a couple questions. Who do you read? Who's your favorite author?
Well, I don't know how people will feel about this, but I actually love Michael Connelly. It's not children's books, but it's a detective story. There's no pictures, unfortunately, but he keeps it moving. And I am a huge fan. I'm starting to fall in love with Eric Larson, who has done some, I think, incredible, it's historical fiction work. And I'm really enjoying that as well. Those are my two favorites right now.
Sorry. Are you working on a new book?
I'm working on a sequel to The Garden in the Glen.
That's fantastic. We didn't talk about this ahead of time, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but would you like to read a few pages from your book?
I would love to do that.
Please do, and I'll let you pick the passage.
Thank you. I won't make it too long, but I'll try to get right to the heart of things. This is one of my favorite chapters. It's called Belonging. And in it, we have a magic flower that is talking to all of the animals. At this point in the book, I'm just going to share with you some of the pictures here. At this point in the book, the lily right here is talking to the other characters in the book and trying to explain to them that they're better than they were because the blue butterfly has been in their lives. They've become different. They've learned to reach beyond themselves and be there for their friends and do for their friends. So here is what is happening now with the fish and the frogs. So the lily says, "I did not forget you," as she stands and looks over at the frogs and fish that are splashing and croaking in the water. She pointed her petals and waved it at the frog. "When you first arrived in this glen, you gobbled up all the flies in sight. Now you leave some just above the water for the trout to enjoy." The frogs snapped their long, sticky tongues and the trout jumped. The daylily dropped her head to look down at the gray bunny. "It was the fish and frogs that kept you from being carried downstream." The gray bunny nodded and hopped over to the rock beside the water. The flower made a curling motion with her petal, drawing everyone closer. "You're all different and all perfect, just as you are. Lately, you've become more than that. Now you reach beyond yourselves, using your differences to help your friends. That is the magic of belonging."
That's beautiful. Thank you very much. When you write, I know there's a lot of aspiring authors out there and children's book authors too. When you write, do you write every day? What are your writing habits? How did you get this book to come forth?
Well, the encouragement of my daughters was something that really kept me going, to be perfectly honest. I didn't have a process per se, Kathy. I just sat down and I started typing. And then the next day, if I didn't like it, I would start all over again. It was many different iterations before this became where we are today. But I was trying to keep the heart of that little bedtime story and then work a book around it. That expression, does it have legs? I needed it to be able to stand on its own. And there wasn't enough just with that. What really gave me traction, and I didn't even realize it at the time, was looking around where I lived. And there they were, all my characters out right in front of me, eating the flowers, trying to take the acorns and use their hoofs and kick them around, and the squirrels eating everything in sight, and the birds flying all over the place, and the fish flopping. I'm a fly fisher woman, and so I'm familiar with both the brown and the rainbow trout. And where we are, the frogs serenade us at night. So I had quite a group to look out at and get some wonderful ideas. And that's when the book started to take off. I didn't even realize it at the time, but they were there for me, and it made such perfect sense. So that's how I got going and kept going in that direction, and the themes just kept multiplying, and the characters became more interesting and so dear to me. And so we stuck it out and we got it done.
That's terrific. It's interesting you fly fish. I'm just getting ready to publish a book on fly fishing.
Oh, well, I will be one of your very first customers, and I will buy several.
It's a wonderful pastime.
Meditative, very meditative.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Tell us about your most memorable author experience.
Most memorable author experience. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Whether it's an event, a person you met, maybe an award, something that when you think about being an author and about your book, what's the first most memorable event that comes to your mind?
Wow. When I think about that, Kathy, I think this answers the question. I think I wrote the book that I always wished that I had had when I was a little girl. I didn't realize it at the time, but I would have loved to have been able to pull this off the shelf and find the comfort there, because I've had the same experiences my daughters have had in different ways, just feeling left out and wanting to conform, but not being able to conform and not really wanting to conform. And I would have felt so much camaraderie in the characters in this book and how they handled things and how they formed that community and how that blue butterfly, so small, stood up to the bossy butterfly villain and changed everything and reached back for the beloved queen and took what was the one thing in the world she couldn't change, and she made it her magic power, her superpower. And as a little person, I can't think of a book right now that I could have gone to and had that connection and felt that solace. And it would have propelled me forward. I think it would have made me feel brave and courageous, because you need that. You need that in this world. And life keeps coming. So you have to be ready. And in a way, that's the most memorable thing when you realize, as I am now, realizing that I wrote the book that I needed.
That's wonderful. And not many people get that opportunity or take the opportunity to do that. How do you think children's books are different today from the children's books that you read as a child? I mean, I read Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, The Happy Hollister, Cherry Ames, Mother Goose, all of those books. How do you think books are evolving now as time goes forward?
Oh, I think the choice is so much greater. There's so much more. And I think this ability that we now have to self-publish is such a gift, because the traditional process is wonderful. And if you're that fortunate that you can take that track, it's great. But that was not something that I know of that was out there when I was young. And it certainly wasn't as respected as I think it is now. I think indie publishing or self-publishing, I think it's a badge of honor, because not only have you authored a book, but you've published a book. And that gives you a lot of control in many ways. I think that's a very positive thing. I think what I'm seeing in children's books, I'm so taken now with some of these illustrator authors that are able to do it all. And the inspiring books that are out there now, Kathy, like Kobe Yamada, who through his compendium company is putting out the most gorgeous books for children. Charlie McCasey, who has such a flair, who did something so original and so special. I think Kate DiCamillo is is a wonderful author who is reaching out to young adults and middle grade children and offering them so much variety and so much fantasy and so much magic in her way. So I think there's just more and more ways to get it out.
I agree. There's used to be over 300,000 books published each year, and I think that has gone up tremendously. There's so many ways to get your work out there. It's very exciting. It really is. So what advice do you have to offer to people who have a book in their mind, or midway in the process? What kind of advice would you give them?
I'm certainly not an expert, but I have been told, and I remember this from a very young age, Kathy, that you need to know your subject. You need to know it well. I think there was once some adage that you need to have read 1,000 words for every word you write. I don't know if that was the case for me, but I certainly read a lot of children's books and I enjoyed them so much. I enjoyed all the different genres, especially fables, which I think are coming back now and they're more popular. They've survived for centuries for a reason, because they work and they're effective and they're great with children. So I also think you need inspiration when you write a book, because it's a rocky road, and especially if you self-publish, I think there's a lot there that you need to be prepared to do. I think the expectations are high. Not only that you should be computer savvy, but that you have some understanding of a book layout. So to keep you going, I think you need to be inspired and to be passionate about it, which I really am. In my situation, I'm so passionate about this little book and it means so much to me. And I have been so inspired by it. And it's really affected me. And I know it's the reason that I kept going, because there was a lot of days I just wanted to snap that computer shut and hit delete, and too many times starting over. But I'm very glad I got through it. And I know it was the inspiration of my children and how much that had meant to them and how much it changed their lives. And I'm very grateful that I did keep going.
So how have your children reacted to your book? I know they're excited about it. How has that gone for the family?
Oh, it's been a source of great excitement, and they're very proud of me. It's kind of a reversal now. All those years that I was so very proud of them and all of their accomplishments and all their breakthroughs and all their aha moments and all their awards and all of their recognitions. And now for them to have encouraged me to do something that I would never have thought of doing. It would never have come to me. And to have your daughter come home from college and say, "Mama, you can do this. You can do this." So it's a source of great pride and wonder. And I'm so proud. I'm actually proud of myself, Kathy. I really am. I think I've grown up a little with this book.
I'm sure a lot of people don't realize, even when you send your manuscripts out to publishers, it's a life work, and your book is like your child. And to send it out there all alone, it's a very scary thing to do. We were talking about advice for aspiring authors. I'd just like to mention that one of the best things a new author or a seasoned author can do is find a critique group. I don't know if you ever worked with critique group, but it helps to talk about your ideas out loud and get feedback from other people who are in different stages of the process from yourself. And for children's book authors, one of the best groups you can belong to is SCBWI, the Children's Society of Children's Book Illustrators and Authors. And that's a terrific group to help, particularly children's book authors. Do you see yourself in the future maybe going into fiction, adult fiction?
Adult fiction? No, I have not considered that. I wonder if there's something out there for me to do in there, Kathy.
Well, there might be the authors that you read. It might be good even for middle grade and up to get into some thrillers or mysteries for a younger audience, or even an adult audience.
I recently, yes, and I've recently heard there's some wonderful young adult work out there, and since I've also been through that phase with my children, I wonder if there isn't something in there that I could do. I'll have to give that some serious thought. The Eric Larson books that I'm reading now, there is so much research that goes into those books. This historic fiction is amazing, and I do like to do research. So I wonder if that wouldn't be a genre for me. But I do have a very special place in my heart for children's books, and so many phenomenal, wonderful authors that I've been exposed to through my children. It's just an honor to think that I have a little something out there in the world too. So.
That's very true too. And you have such a good relationship with your illustrator that it would be wonderful. Are you going to work with her on the second book too?
I'm going to get this one a little bit further, and I hope so. She's now living in Hungary. Mm-hmm. And at the end of our time together, she had moved over there. It didn't make it any more difficult because we were doing everything on the computer or the phone. But I would love for her to continue, because I agree it's a very gentle way to address a children's book. I'd love to work with Maggie again.
I hope so too. And for all of those people who are watching, one more time, how about telling them how they can get in touch with you, and that Elizabeth Moseley is available to come to your class in person when possible, definitely virtually. That has been a big boon. I know we do virtual school visits globally, and it's fantastic to get to know those kids and those teachers. So tell people how they can get in touch with you, and do you have any upcoming events? We'd like to know that too.
I do not. This was my big event. This was the one that I really focused on. I let a couple other things go because I wanted this to, and I'm glad I prepared. Was a little bit nervous, but our website is the best way to reach out and to get to know the book a little bit. That's www.gardenandglen.com. I do not at this time have any upcoming events, Kathy, but I so enjoyed my school visits, and I love reading to children and answering questions. I love the questions that they ask, and they're so innocent and dear, and I would love to do that. I've enjoyed that. I hope I can continue doing that.
I hope so too. And for everyone who joined us, we want to thank you very much. And thank you, Elizabeth Moseley, for joining us. And we love your book. It's beautiful. And I urge people to get a copy of Elizabeth's book. And if you like it, do a review on Amazon. And please get in touch with the author through her website and let her know what you think. And hopefully, Elizabeth, you'll come back and see us again. Thank you.
I would love to. Thank you very much.